Hey everyone, how's it going? OP Yash, I'm on time. Glad to see it. How are you doing on this Sunday morning? Happy December to everyone. Um, I Today we're going to be talking about some anime endings. I kind of just wanted to talk about some anime in general, and so I just kind of have a random tier list that we can discuss. Let me know if there's any issues with any of the production, if the mic sounds weird, or if I go out of focus or anything. Let me know. Um, but yeah, I was just kind of in the mood. Once I like a week or two ago, I made a short about Code Geass's ending, and I was thinking a lot about it since then. And I was like, well, it'd be great to talk about some anime endings. And so I finally found some time to do it. Again, you've probably seen if you follow me on Twitter or if you've seen my community posts, but we had some copyright issues on the channel a couple weeks ago. That's kind of why there's been a little less posting over November. But now, it's officially resolved. I got all 3 copyright strikes removed. So we're totally good on the channel currently, and hopefully we have kind of a path forward if we do get some more strikes, in the future. But thank you everyone for the support of that. And so that's kind of why, if there's been a few less video essays than normal, that's definitely why. And also I had like a crazy last week. I was back home, um, and I got the stomach flu. Like, me and a bunch of family members got the stomach flu, so I was just like at home for like a week, just like throwing up and stuff. It was quite a wild time over American Thanksgiving for any Americans in the chat. So that was quite a fun time. But yeah, so I'll also be announcing the next watch along, which has gotten delayed because of the strikes and because I got sick. But we're gonna be watching Aoashi, so which I've actually never seen before. So I'll probably post that schedule tomorrow, and we'll probably start it in about a week. So if you all are interested in watching that, uh, definitely check it out and be on the lookout for it. Uh, Best sports anime, I mean, for sure, Haikyuu, right? Um, I love Kuroko, and I feel like Slam Dunk are the other 2 for me. Hajime no Ippo, which I've not seen all of, but is probably is a good contender. I reckon Blue Lock. I feel like if we're talking sports anime, Blue Lock probably not, with how much of a disappointment season 2 has been. But I do really enjoy the Blue Lock manga, and I need to. I'm not caught up currently, but I am ahead of where the anime is at, and I really need to catch up on that because it is very good. Um, but yeah, we can definitely hop into the tier list and kind of go over just kind of generally what we're going to be talking about. I just kind of grabbed a random tier list. Let me pull it up. Um, yeah, no, the animation's crazy. Yeah, it's such a bummer. How rough it's been, because the manga has so many great panels, and like I know it's been slightly better during the U20 match, but it's like that match, so many of the panels are just out of this world good in the Blue Lock manga. Yeah, definitely a disappointment. But if we're talking manga, like, sometimes it's easy to think like manga and anime, and that's going to be a little bit of what we're talking about here. I mean, if you look at the tier list here, um, there's a lot of these are manga covers. Um, and so the Blue Lock manga is fantastic, I think, and honestly underrated in like the sports anime manga community. Like, obviously there's the Blue Lock fans, but there's a lot of people who kind of look down on Blue Lock, I think, a bit unfairly. The manga's so good. Yeah, totally agree. And so yeah, this is just kind of a random list that is anime slash manga. So I probably haven't seen or completed everything on this list. But I've definitely done enough of it that I think I'll be able to use this. And there was another list I found that was like basically every show ever, and I did not have time to filter through that. So I feel like these are a lot of the big hitters. If I've read the manga or anime, we'll talk about it as we go through. And if you see something that's not, I mean, it's a pretty good list here, but if you see something that's not on here, let me know, and if I've seen it, I can give you my thoughts on the ending. And also, you might have to help me recognize a couple of these shows as I'm looking at it. But yeah, we can start off. And we got a heavy hitter here. And, of course, let me know what rank you'd put them in. Do we want to keep them S, A, B, C, D? And then I kind of threw in haven't seen, or should we get a little more specific here? Uh, Brazil arc for Haikyuu is peak. 100% really hope that the anime is able to do it justice. Mono Note says, I think Blue Lock is very unrealistic and kind of weird. The characters are fixed on their own success, and this isn't how sports team or team sports works. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a bit off putting when you first get into it. And like, it's definitely unrealistic in terms of like, no way a team with all strikers is going to ever compete with a team, that is actually well rounded and things like that. But I do think it's extreme perspective on sports and teamwork actually has a little bit of value. Like, I don't know, I feel like the way it challenges kind of maybe some traditional ideas of what we've come to learn from sports, which is maybe coaches who are too see players very specifically and fit players into very specific slots potentially limit the potential growth for other players. And I think that's a really interesting concept that really gets explored in the U20 match, with the main defender, in that match. Um, and so, yeah, I think let's just stick with S through D, or maybe let's rename them just for people who come in. So like S would be like uh, a goat ending. Maybe we'll try to only have 5 to 7 in here. I mean, there's a lot of ones here. Very good for A. I'd say solid for B, like, and then kind of a mixed bag and underwhelming. Oh, that looks terrible. Maybe, no. Let's see here. What could we call underwhelming? That doesn't look so bad. More bad than good. Or mid. Okay. Yeah, we can do mid. That's easy. Okay. And then haven't seen. All right. So let's talk with Attack on Titan, which I think is definitely really interesting. The anime, I think it's a very good ending. And I think and I've kind of been on that train for a while, and I think a lot of people might disagree. And like, I was a manga reader when it came out. I think the anime, it flows a bit better, and I kind of talked about that in a video last year. But everything is kind of on the last like 8 chapters or whatever that people really struggle with. But I think there's a lot of really good concepts there. It's just not quite executed in the GOAT category. That so much of the rest of the story is. And so I think that's why people had such a visceral reaction to it, let alone just like, that's just the reaction you get for everything basically these days in terms of like Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero Academia. But I think I really liked the way, Armin and obviously there's going to be, maybe minor spoilers here for a lot of these shows, but for Attack on Titan, the way Armin and Eren fight at the end, a lot of the concepts of how it finishes, I think, especially when you look at that last chapter and their conversation and all of this stuff, like some of it might have not been executed perfectly, but I think it's very good. And I think there's a lot of really, really great ideas there. So I think it's a very good ending. Tokyo Ghoul is another one that, if we're talking anime, it's mid, but let's talk manga here, and we'll kind of just talk the best version. If it's manga, anime, we'll talk whatever I think is best if I've seen or read them both. And I think the ending's phenomenal in the manga, and I think it's better than Attack on Titans. Probably not in the GOAT territory, although that would be fitting with some of the mentions of the story. But I think it's just Kaneki's character arc hits so well through the end, and again, I think there's moments. Is Tokyo Ghoul manga worth a read? 100%. It is so good, and also you get the flavor of the manga that's different is that Sui Ishida is just so interesting, in terms of how he panels, in terms of, his art direction, and let alone, like, the actual story, and the anime never captured that, like, even when the anime was decent, it never reached the level of Sui Ishida's pen because the production was just, like, okay, outside of like Unravel, which is amazing. It's the first manga I ever collected. It has like my favorite covers of like probably any series, and and I think Tokyo Ghoul, and I'm counting Tokyo Ghoul re in this. I kind of consider them the same, in similar to like Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. It's just a rebranding for the same second half of the story. Um, and it gets so dark and so fascinating. It has an amazing cast of characters. And I think the ending does a great job. And I think about the last panel specifically of the story with the coffee cup, like all the time. And so super good, and huge fan. Soup, love your videos. The Oikawa essays are my favorite. Hey, thank you so much. Glad you enjoy them. And yeah, it was really fun to make a new Oikawa video recently because it had weirdly been a couple years, which is so funny. But yeah, I really appreciate it. Glad you enjoy the Oikawa videos. And what are your thoughts on a couple of these anime endings? Fairy Tale. I don't think I've gotten through all of Fairy Tale. Um, like maybe a long time ago, but I did fall off the series. I watched a lot of the anime. I had never really read the manga. So if there's any like hardcore fairy tale fans, and I think it's over, right? The manga at least. Um, let me know. I'm gonna put it in probably mixed bag, more as that's kind of how I felt about the entire series. And I imagine Fairy Tale probably, like, I've never heard anything about like the ending getting super good. But of course, like I haven't technically seen it, so it probably shouldn't be and haven't seen, but I feel like I can give my opinion on it. And if the chat thinks one way or another, I'm willing to change my list. LMAO, I dropped it. Yeah, like I dropped it a long time ago, and it was fun. Like I had a good time with it. It was kind of in the weird period where I had, watched all the big 3 and, previous shows like Yu Yu Hakusho and things like that, and didn't really have a shonen to get into, and I got into Fairy Tail and thought it was good and then just kinda dropped it. And then, like, a year or 2 later, I got, like, super into My Hero Academia and stuff, and got into more of that new generation, or at the time, the new generation. Um, so Fullmetal Alchemist is my favorite show of all time, which is funny because, like, you probably would think it's Haikyuu. Um, but I adore Fullmetal Alchemist. I'd love to make a full retrospective on it, but it's just such a daunting task. But I definitely think it's one of the best endings. And I think both versions honestly have phenomenal endings. But the Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood has such a grand feel. Um, Talking about FMA OG, I think this poster is Brotherhood. Um, but I think the original has an amazing ending as well. But I think the original ending is like lives in the bittersweet, and I love that. And it's really kind of a unique ending for a really unique piece of art, I think, which is one of the stories ever that breaks away from the source material and is still good. Like that just doesn't happen. Like it's like Game of Thrones if it changed everything vastly still, but somehow ended up making a really intimate and interesting story. But Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood does fill in so many more of the character arcs. It does have that grand ending that I think is kind of fitting for what the series was building up to. And I still love Ed's decision to give up alchemy, right? Like it's as impactful as him in the original going to the other side. FMA Brotherhood should be in GOAT. Given a proper closure at the end. Yeah, I think it's totally GOAT. I think it's one of the better endings here. And also good to see you in the chat again. And hey, how's it going? How are you doing on this December 1st, beginning of December, my favorite month because it's my birthday month. How are you doing, and what are your thoughts on some of these endings? The Bleach ending is definitely interesting. Obviously, the anime's not quite over. Um, I think the Bleach ending is solid. Like, I dearly need a Bleach reread, and I honestly was thinking about doing one. I don't know if anyone would be interested, and I need to ask my patrons about it. But like I do with the watch alongs, I was thinking of maybe just making a Bleach channel and just like trying to read like 10 chapters a week, or maybe 30 chapters a week or something, and then kind of talk about it with. Just throw my thoughts in there for patrons and YouTube members. But I remember the Bleach, and because the reason I feel like this actually could be a bit higher is because I read Bleach a long time ago, and there's so many people I respect, specifically Radman. If you've ever seen his videos, who is such a big Bleach fan and sees a lot of nuance that maybe I did miss back in the day. And and so I think, but I remember it just being solid. Like that's kind of how I felt about everything post Eisen. Like there's some good stuff there, and also some stuff that I don't love. And I did, at least at the time, subscribe to the idea that the ending felt rushed, and not that it wasn't Kubo's intent, but that it just got, like, a lot of plot lines just got wrapped up so quickly, in an unsatisfying kind of way. Um, but Bleach is one of the weird series where, I do love it. Like, I think it's a very good series. I think it's better than Solid overall. Um, but one that I would like to reread, and I think I could be persuaded, in a lot of different ways on, you know, I think a reread could really give me a different perspective on it. Um, Mainly because I think, when I first read it, it's so much through the lens um, of this is not as good as One Piece or Naruto for me. And because of that, I feel like I was maybe harsher on it and didn't give it certain chances as it went later on. Um, you know, but I think it's, Bleach fans like to like cry wolf a lot, and I think that's a bit much, but I do think there's a lot of great there. Um, Bleach's last panel with all the gang in the living room was quite wholesome. Totally agree. Yeah, I mean that last panel was very good. Um, and there are some great moments with the ending. So I think it's solid. It doesn't quite blow me away in terms of what other endings do, but I think it's good from what I remember. But again, it's been a long time since I've read the ending there. Code Geass. This is the whole thing that started this when I made that short about, is Code Geass ending still, the greatest of all time? And right now I'm thinking, like, yes, like that last episode and couple of episodes are so unbelievably well done, and it's so insane how they were able to flip it, and how they just perfectly executed Lelouch's character, which is like not an easy character archetype to nail, and they did just a phenomenal job with it. And I just adore Code Geass's ending. It takes a mess of a second season with, some really, really great moments. Like I do think season 2 still is very, very good. But it takes a mess of an end of kind of plot lines of highs and lows, and kind of smooths it all out with the ending in a way that, like, very few, if any, endings have ever been able to accomplish for me. It's just absolutely insane. Um, and yeah, I think it's phenomenal ending. I don't know. I feel like it's definitely the betting favorite to be number one on this list, and we'll kind of see how it goes from here on out. And so Death Note's a really interesting one, right? And I think Death Note, I'm not as harsh. So I'm kind of in a different spot. I've seen Death Note so many times, like probably so many of you. I'm in kind of a weird spot with Death Note where the last time I rewatched it, my feelings on the show overall was that it's still a great show, but it's not like it used to be like a top 5 show for me. Like I feel like everyone who when they watch it the first time, it's like this is a top 5, top 3 show of all time. And it's not a top 10 for me anymore. Maybe it's still it's probably in the 11 to 20 range, so still like right incredibly high for how many anime I've seen. Um but I did soften on the series in general. But I do really love the final episode, and I'm not as harsh on Near, actually. I just don't think I think you can see some of the holes in the storytelling throughout in terms of like some of the characterization and stuff. And I say that again in terms of it being the greatest anime of all time versus, just a very, very good anime. Um, and I kind of like the ending. Like I'm thinking it's very good, but maybe not quite as good as Attack on Titan, and definitely not as good as Tokyo Ghoul. It's probably very good to solid. Um, I think the ending, I think it's pretty good, but the ending was a bit meh. I think the manga is better with pacing and exploring everything. That I have heard that, yeah, maybe I haven't read the manga yet, so maybe I'll put it top solid. Um, but I like a great Christmas gift I got a couple years ago was a friend of mine got me all the volumes of Death Note, which you can see like one of the volumes right here. Like the covers are unbelievably good, and it's like the original single volumes of it, which I much prefer to like the bigger tankobons, unless it's Vagabond, basically. Um, and uh, and yeah, I've heard that the manga does lengthen things and make the ending work better. So I'll kind of go with the anime. I'll put it in solid, even though I think the last episode itself is pretty good, and I don't hate the Near overall. I don't think it in terms of amazing endings, it doesn't like totally elevate it like Code Geass does. Like it's so funny to compare those two because they've been compared forever because they came out within right a year of each other, and they're about a genius lad who's trying to solve some of the world's problems. Naruto is an interesting one because the final arc, I am in kind of a general camp that it's a lot weaker than the material beforehand. App, good to see you. How's it going? Let me know some of your thoughts on these endings, and hope you're doing well. Always good to see you, and always appreciate the support. Um, but yeah, so for Naruto, like I am definitely of the belief that the material after Pain is not is a lot more inconsistent. Um it feels like less personal to me at sometimes. Like there's a lot of material there. There's going to be good moments that you can find, but I do struggle with it more than I like basically everything that came before it. And I'm also not of the camp that like OG Naruto was so much better and more personal than like later Naruto overall. Um, because I love everything with the Akatsuki, and I love all of the beginning arcs of Shippuden. And so that for sure. But I think the way the ending happened, and once you get to the ending itself, I think it's very good. If the final arc is solid, the ending the final arc's probably a mixed bag for me, but the ending maybe raises it to solid. Um, and I'm gonna put it above Attack on Titan actually. Like the fight with Naruto and Sasuke just like moves everyone, right, who watches the series in a way that not a lot of series can match. And I think that's just super good. And so yeah, massive fan of I mean Naruto was the series that right like changed everything for me, made me an anime fan to this extent, and really got me to explore things. Like it was before I really fell in love with Full Metal Alchemist and things like that. And before Naruto, I had seen Dragon Ball Z. I had seen some uh, Inuyasha and Yu Yu Hakusho. But Naruto was really the thing that, like, for so many people my age, just like it was such an important show for me. Um, and I think the ending does a great job. And like, I can always watch the last like 6 episodes or read the last however many chapters, and it always hits, even if the final arc was a little mixed. Angel Beats, which is an amazing series, and probably the first not major series. Especially if you're gotten to anime within the last 10 years, like maybe you haven't even seen Angel Beats. Um, super fun series with a really great core to it. I think it has a very solid ending, and I'm gonna put it at the top of solid, honestly. Um, I think the ending helps make the show really good. Um, because there's less people who probably have seen it. I won't like spoil anything, but I love what they do with the main character. I'm blanking on his name. Uh, but and of course everyone knows his backstory is like so tragic and good. But Angel Beats is such a sad fun series. Yeah, app knows what I mean here, and I think the ending does really well. Like, I don't think it's quite something that would raise it to the next couple of tiers in terms of like the emotion at the end of Tokyo Ghoul or Naruto. That is just like, hard to match though when you're talking a 12 episode series versus, those two series are so long. But I think Angel Beats is fantastic. Fantastic ending. Hunter x Hunter, and of course the manga is still ongoing, but the anime does kind of have a pretty good conclusion. And it's why it's so easy to recommend that series, even with all of the hiatuses for Tagashi. Even though like the stuff beyond the anime is arguably going to become the best material in the entire series, like the Succession Wars, just on another level. Um, but the ending with Gon completing his journey and it is actually super satisfying. Like, you don't really hear a lot of people who get to the end and are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so upset that there's no more," like, without having read what's to come. Like, you're kind of like, well, that makes sense. It's a pretty good ending. Like, it's open ended for a story about, kind of, hunting and stuff like that. So I actually think it's in the very good to solid category. I'm going to put it at bottom of very good just because I know that what's to come is so incredible. Um, and yeah, I think Hunter x Hunter's ending's really great. Now we're gonna get to one of my kind of hotter takes, which is I don't like Steins Gate very much. Steins Gate just never moved me when I was really getting into anime discourse was, in the early 2010s. And, Steins Gate was one of those shows that was universally considered top 10. And I hadn't watched it for a long time. And I finally just like bought the Blu-ray for it so I could watch it. And it just didn't move me. And I haven't given it a try in probably 5 years. Again, like I think I've watched it like one and a half times. Um, and I definitely am willing to give it a try again, but I'm gonna put it, for the sake of other people, I'll put it in solid because I know how many people love the series and love the ending, but it really is kind of a mediocre show for me. Just did not vibe with it. Um, and so I think solid is kind of where it has to go for me, unfortunately. I don't know. Do we have a lot of big Steins Gate fans? Maybe I'll like it more. Like, I do love science fiction, and I've read so much science fiction recently. Like, within the last couple years, um, reading bigger science fiction, like epic sci-fi, like the Red Rising series, and Dune is my favorite book of all time. I'm literally repping it right now on my shirt. I don't know if you can see that, but love Dune so much, and yet Steins Gate and its weird time travel story just did not land for me. Yeah, I need to rewatch soon. Yeah, and that's a good call, probably. Like, I better find that Blu-ray and just like watch it again and see if it hits this time, because man, did it not work for me. And I gave it like multiple tries because I just was, I went into it without a doubt anticipating this was going to be like the best anime of all time. It's going to be a top 10 show. And it just did not land for me. um I've not seen, is this, I'm trying to remember what the name of this is this like Toradora or something like that? Maybe. uh Yeah, and I think that makes sense. Would you have Steins Gate? I think most people, like, it's one of my biggest hot takes. It and my not love. I don't love One Punch Man in the same way that everyone else does as well. Like, I don't hate the series, this or Steins Gate, but I don't adore them or anything. But most people, those are probably my two hottest takes in terms of series people love that I don't. Because most of the time I'm like, yeah, that's a great show. right? Like the show that everyone loves, turns out I love it too. Like these are a couple of the only ones that I don't. Um, Maybe some early JoJo parts I don't like quite as much as other people. But would you put it in GOAT or very good? Yash. Akame ga Kill, good ending. I don't know. Do you guys think it's solid? I mean, it's definitely not very good or GOAT. Or I mean, it could be mixed bag even. Um, yeah, first 6 episodes are slow, but for me, the rest of the show carries. Yeah, like that's. I mean, like that is where the turn happens. It's like, and isn't there like a big turn episode 12 as well? Or maybe somewhere around there. But yeah, for some reason, I just never got into it. Like I like hate watched it almost, and hate's probably too strong of a word, but I think that's kind of the vibe. Um, to have a little more diversity here, I'm gonna put Akame Got Killed just above Fairy Tale, um, between Goat and Very Good. Yeah, and that's kind of what I would anticipate where most people would put it because it is a show that kind of hinges on the ending. Um, I agree. I don't like One Punch Man. Is overrated. Yeah, I the first season I just did not. It did not hit me like it hit everyone else. And it was surprising because I was so excited about it. I bought like before I even like really watched any of it, I bought a couple of volumes because I was just so sure I was gonna love it. And then um it didn't land for me. And like I can see the appeal of it even more than Steins Gate, I think. And maybe it's again worth another try. It's been probably 5 or 6 years since I've given it a watch, but yeah, it did not work for me. Um, uh, Assassination Classroom, for sure in goat tier, right? Like probably bottom of goat. Like the final episode's so good. Um, it doesn't overstay its welcome. The ending, yeah, I mean, and the big death is just like it unravels in the perfect kind of way, and it really makes the show brilliant. And so I think Assassination Costume is one of the better endings out there for a show that's, you know, really tightly knit and well done, I think. And a show that I kind of would love to rewatch soon, right? Like it's so good. And you know, I feel like that's a pretty decent place for it. Erased, is that our first mid ending? Because like Erased is one of the shows where it would be an all-time show if it had a solid ending. But it just they really botched the final couple episodes and it's so brutal. Um so yeah, I mean I kind of agree with a lot of people. Like I think Erased ending is one of the weaker endings kind of out there. And I feel like that's kind of a popular take. Um but yeah, definitely how I feel about it. Kill the Kill is kind of a mixed bag, I think. Um, that's funny that I have it next to a comic got Kill. Like Kill the Kill is a series that I just never loved, but thought was fine, and I feel like it kind of keeps that quality throughout. Um, and so yeah, I think that's kind of agreed. Some people glaze erased, but it was not good. Yeah, well, I mean, I think the ending wasn't good. Like overall, I would rate the series at like a, you know, if these were the total series rankings, I'd put it in solid. But because I think the last couple episodes are just like it just drops the ball in terms of how it handles the mysteries that were so engaging. So yeah, bit frustrating there. Parasite, amazing show with an amazing ending. I'm gonna put it top of or maybe behind Tokyo Ghoul's manga. Um, yeah, I love the ending of Parasite. I think it thematically is really rich. It's exciting, has great fights. Like it's just, you know, like the series I feel like just continues to climb. Parasite, like it was just very solid. Not huge spikes like Code Geass or, you know, an ending that you'll never forget about like Full Metal or Assassination Classroom, but just high quality. And it is like a classic series of just like great stuff from beginning to end. Love Parasite, and I think most people do who've seen it. Um, but yeah, I really think Parasite is a phenomenal show. Seven Deadly Sins is an interesting one. Hopefully, you guys can see some of these. We're kind of getting, you know, and there's like this huge ad at the bottom that I just like can't get rid of. So I'll try to move it around to make sure y'all can see. Seven Deadly Sins has got to be a pretty low ending. Um, and it's so funny because I was like a pretty big fan of the series. You know, when season one came out, you know, like you know, like there was some off-putting things about Meliodas, but like it was still a really fun show, I thought. Um, like I've seen the first season a couple of times. Like I watched it and rewatched it, and then you know, so I haven't read the manga or anything, so this would just be anime. But yeah, the animation and season two was still like pretty good. Like the introduction of Escanor and all this stuff. Like there was a lot there. I thought that was pretty good. I have a video. I had a video on the channel. I think it got taken down a long time ago, but that was like why I love Seven Deadly Sins, and like probably good it got taken down because like the series fall off is so big. Um, yeah, the animation's so bad later on. It's unbelievable, especially how good the animation is in season 1. Like, I think one of the reasons it was so popular, at least for, like, me and a lot of friends who had watched it, because it had very, very good animation. It was like a nice poppy action series that was easily watchable on Netflix, and at the time, like, that was you know, when it released on Netflix, that was like a big deal, and it was obviously a big show for them, dipping their toes into anime. Yeah, Meliodas versus Escanor just cracks me up. It's so bad. So yeah, I feel like this has to be in mid, and I'm gonna put it below Erased, even though the first season I remember really enjoying, but I think the series as it goes on delves into weirder territory. Like I think not only does the animation get worse, but the entire story itself gets worse and starts to miss the mark, I think. And so and of course to you know, we can't put everything in the same tiers and I think it is a pretty mediocre ending. Like I don't think anyone watches that series and says oh, wow, you know, it just kept getting better in quality or stayed quality, like, everyone knows the first season's the best season, and it gets worse and worse and worse from there, and they run out of ideas and they rely on tropes that are just annoying, where the first season's kind of a fun thing, I thought, even if there's some weird stuff with it. Uh, yes, they were stretching it. Yeah, totally, totally agree. This is Your Lie in April, I believe, which is a very good ending. Probably above Naruto's. Your Lie in April, great show. Um, and yeah, uh, is goaded. Yeah, I mean, maybe it could be. I mean, it does have a great ending. Um, it's a great show overall, like so emotional, amazing characters, you know, and then production wise, everything follows suit. And yeah, you add a good score to everything and you're really cooking. But I don't want to go I do think I prefer Parasite over it a little bit. And I do prefer Tokyo Ghoul. Tokyo Ghoul I think is actually a good barrier because the manga ending like I think is phenomenal. So that's going to be a good barrier. And I don't want to put too many in GOAT because you can only have too many greatest of all times, right? Future Diaries. I feel like I remember it's been a very long time since I've seen this series. I feel like I remember it being high end of mixed bag, low end of solid. Is that kind of what people are thinking on? Um, I'm gonna lean top of mixed bag, but it could be solid. If we have you know big fans of the series in here, I just remember its concept kind of waning for me. Like it was kind of all about the edginess and the concept, and some of those series, if they're not able to add new layers or new dimensions to the mystery, just kind of fall out. And I feel like Future Diaries kind of falls into that category of a show, especially over the years. You kind of think back on, you're like, maybe that wasn't as good as I remember it being. But I could be convinced it's in the solid category. We'll go Promise Neverland anime, which will be The bottom of mid, of course, so terrible, and such a brilliant concept to start with. And while the manga's ending, isn't the greatest thing in the world, it's still decent. Like at least would be in like the solid category, I think. But man, what a notoriously horrific ending to the anime. So bad. So bad. Um another I think another is like a series that was overvalued maybe because it was like, just aesthetically fun. Um I'll put it at the bottom of mixed bag. Like it's a fine series. It's like a fine middle of the road. Like I had fun with it when I watched, and I don't think me or very many people think it's like, of the quality of a lot of series that are above it on this list. And the ending is, was kind of a letdown, I think. They could have gone a lot bigger with it. And so I think bottom of mixed bag makes a little bit of sense for it. Cowboy Bebop's ending, I think, has to be. I'm going to put it behind Assassination Classroom, but I think it has to be up in the top. I think it's the maybe the greatest episodic series of all time, and yet it has such a strong narrative conclusion that kind of, of course, is being built up throughout the series. But man, like those final couple episodes are just some of my favorite episodes of any anime ever. Um, and so yeah, I think its ending is in goat material for sure. Cowboy Bebop's unbelievable, timeless for sure. Death Parade's really interesting because I adore Death Parade, and I think it has a good ending, but it is pretty open ended. Um, right, like there's so much left up to the potential of a season two, and so because of that, I'm gonna kind of put it in solid. Like I think it's still very good. There's so many good reveals that I think bring a lot of nuances about this kind of purgatory game that's going on. But also, because there is no second season, I don't think they're really able to go as far as the series definitely was hinting at. As an anime original. Gurren Lagann has a very good ending, probably above Parasite. For me, I don't love the series quite as much as a lot of people, but it is a very good series, and it gets crazier and crazier and crazier as it goes throughout. And man, does that ending really hit the kind of vibe that the second half of the series kind of crafts. Um, so yeah, because of that, I think Gurren Lagann should be up there. I think there's probably a few people who would put it in GOAT. For me, it's not quite that high, but still very deserving. And I'm looking at like some of these series coming up, and it's like, man, we got a lot in GOAT and a lot in very good coming up. Because Haikyuu manga is, without a doubt, like at least here, the ending of the manga is unbelievable. And obviously the anime is not over yet, and the anime is probably on pace to be at least a tier lower. Um, but I mean, Haikyuu's manga is one of the best series at closing every single thread that you wanted to be touched on, and um, while also being surprising and phenomenal and exciting, and it's so good. You can't ask for a better ending, um, unless you're Fullmetal Alchemist or Code Geass, right? This list is getting big now. Psychopaths is definitely an interesting one. Um, it's in a probably the very good category, but probably for me, bottom of very good. Like I think Hunter x Hunter's is maybe a little more Gon finding Gene is a little more satisfying, but Psychopaths is a phenomenal series, and the ending matches its quality. Um, Soul Eater is probably in solid. I'm gonna put it right there. Um, I think the series could have gone on a bit longer, and I've only seen the anime, and it has a good ending, great aesthetic, um, but I definitely think it could have maybe gone on a bit longer, and I think there was more meat left for these characters, but it's not like it was a terrible ending or anything. Like it's still very solid. Um, And then we've got Anohana next, uh, which I'm gonna place. I feel like Anohana's in very good for me. I'm gonna put it right above Attack on Titan, actually. Um, and real quick, I'm gonna take a quick break and go blow my nose real quick because my allergies are getting to me. But Anohana's ending is phenomenal. I'll be back in just a minute here. Sorry about that, everybody. Uh, Allergies in Texas, they be getting me early in the morning. But yeah, Anohana is a series that the crux of it is kind of this ending of, this really and I actually watched Anohana for the first time, I think earlier this year or late last year. Maybe it was late last year. And yeah, blew me away. Like, I think it holds up really well. Super emotional, great reveal, kind of when everyone figures everything out, and definitely a series worth your time. That's another one kind of like Angel Beats that maybe not a lot of people have seen. A lot of it came out over 10 years ago, and it's like there's going to be huge. There's so many new anime fans. Like maybe that's a series that they missed, and so highly, highly recommend it. Another one I haven't seen, is this. I'm trying to remember what the name of this is. Dorara? Is that how it's pronounced? Or something along those lines? Heard great things. I don't know if anyone in the chat has a pitch for me, but for a couple here that I haven't seen, but yeah, only heard great things. Food Wars, I remember feeling between mixed bag and mid. Like I feel like the series just progressively got worse and worse. I'm gonna put it top of mid just because I feel like mid needs a little more juice, and I just remember, yeah, it was a series that like just lost interest over time. Neon Genesis Evangelion is very interesting. Um, and I love all of the endings, honestly. Like, I love the ending of the original show, and I love the end of Evangelion, which I think is most people's main ending for the series, and as it probably should be. Getting to watch it in theaters recently was such an amazing experience. I'm gonna put it at top of very good, just because there's so many endings, and there's gonna be flavors that people might not like, but I think all the endings are fantastic. Um, realize there's like a ad here. Like I don't know what's going on here. Um, and then is this Revolutionary Girl Utena? Is that right? Or what series is this? This looks too modern for that. I'm gonna put it here. If anyone can confirm what series this is, because it looks familiar. If it is Revolutionary Girl, I have seen that, but now I'm looking at it and I'm like, who is this? Looks different to me. It looks too modern. Um, and again, here's another series that like I can't even like remember what it is. We might get to a handful here that I haven't seen potentially. Um, Although, yeah, most of these I have though. So, Fate Zero, amazing, amazing ending. Oh my god, I love Fate Zero so much, and it's so funny that I really haven't expanded into the other Fate series very much. Like I've only watched like half of Ultimate Blade Works, but Fate Zero is high, like probably above Tokyo Ghoul high. I mean, that ending is unbelievable with some of the fights. You think of the one in the Batman, in the Dark Knight arena and things like that. And it's so good. It's aged so well. Um, I could rewatch Fate Zero like any day of the week and it would hit. All right, now we're doing a couple more that I haven't seen or I just like can't remember because their names aren't on the poster. But this is Darling in the Franxx, which I think was a mixed bag, probably above a Kame ga Kill. Darling in the Franxx is fine, like it's kind of a funny series. I don't know if anyone has huge opinions on it. Probably not. Like I think it's leans to just like kind of okay. Um, so mixed bag. Like it's not the worst thing in the world. I wouldn't put it in mid. But it's nothing to drive home about. Madoka Magica, very very good. Probably right behind Tokyo Ghoul for me. So very good kind of a pop and category here today. But Madoka Magica, again, one of my favorite shows, and the ending totally does it justice. It raises the scale, I think it's sometimes it's kind of a unique balance to continue raising the scale because you might kind of lose what made the show so great. But a lot of these of the best endings, I think, do a great job of that. And Madoka is a very good example. Like I can just remember the final fights in Madoka. Like I haven't watched the show in years, and I still think back to those moments frequently, to be honest. And so I think Madoka's phenomenal. And on a rewatch could honestly be moved to GOAT because I think it's that good of a show. Yeah, adore Madoka. I got another one I haven't seen here, but now we're into JoJo's with each part here considered their own. I haven't read Steel Ball Run yet. I'm once the either I'm gonna watch the anime or when the volumes are released physically, I'm gonna start buying them. So I've been waiting for a long time on that. My favorite part is part 4, and I think part 4 has a very good ending. Um, Probably like above Gurren Lagann. Um, so JoJo's is a series that's not quite like a goated series for me or anything like that. But I do think it's very good. And so my feelings on the endings are probably going to correlate with my feelings on the entire series. But like the second half of part 4 is so and I enjoy the first half of part 4. Like I enjoy the slice of life, but the second half with what's his name, with Kira, our serial killer king, I think is just phenomenal. And I would put part 5 as my next, and I would put this probably behind like Attack on Titan's ending. Um, and then part 3 is probably top of solid, which no, it's yeah, top of solid is good, and I'd put part 6 bottom of very good, and then part 2 is probably here for me, and part 1 is a mixed bag. I don't love the first 3 parts overall, although I do think the ending of part 3 is better than the show itself. The show I think is really, really meanders in the middle of that part, and I think part 4 through 6, it's like, okay, this is one of the very, very best series I've ever seen. 1 through 3 is like, why am I still watching it? That's my feeling on JoJo. And I fully anticipate Steel Ball Run to be as good as everyone has said it's been. Um, Another one that I can't remember the name of right now. I'm getting exposed currently. Samurai Champloo, very good ending. Not quite Cowboy Bebop's ending, but it does do a lot of really really great work for the episodic story that it's being told in. Yeah, like Samurai Champloo doesn't totally blow me away. In the same way that like a Bebop does, and of course those are connected because of their director. Um, but it is, I think, a very very solid series. Um, we got Dragon Ball Z here. This is a really interesting one because I think Dragon Ball Z is and we're getting to like a bunch of fates that I haven't seen coming up soon. But Dragon Ball Z, I think the ending itself is actually really good. I think how it concludes its story, uh, I'm gonna put it pretty high. Yeah, I mean, I have so much nostalgia for the ending. It's really hard to separate myself from that because, like, I remember watching the ending when I was so young, and I really liked the final arc with Majin Buu growing up, and so I think the ending with the spirit bomb and kind of how it's handled is really well done, and a very good send off for an iconic series, even if it's not necessarily at the peak of its storytelling powers. Dead Man Wonderland, I've only seen the anime, which had a pretty mid ending, unfortunately. And it's a series I like really was rooting for. I really wanted to love it. Um, and I just, fell off the wagon here. Um, and so, yeah, we're going to another batch of ones that I've not quite seen yet. I've seen like half of Ultimate Blade Works. Um, and some of these that I'm just like not recognizing. Like if you see any in here that you like really really love, like let me know and I can place them and I'll trust your opinions because yeah, some of these are just like leaving my mind. And so I might start just picking out some that I have seen. Being one of them. Um, Kuroko, I'm gonna put. I feel like the ending is actually like I keep wanting to put everything in very good because it's definitely better than part three's ending and part six's ending. I'm gonna put Kuroko right behind Hunter x Hunter. Yeah, fantastic ending, love it. Uh, the final match is so good um, between Akashi and our gang and he's a worthy final boss. It fits the vibe of the series so well, and them overcoming him is phenomenal. Um, Host Club's probably in solid. Like I don't remember it super well, but remember like not hating it. So I feel like solid's probably a good place. There's a weird amount of people I know uh, who Host Club's like one of their, if not their first anime that they ever watched, which just like blows my mind and is kind of like why I ended up watching it. Um, let's see. I'm just gonna start picking out some because I've only seen like half of a lot of these series, or I just like don't recognize them. So I'm gonna kind of move the ones to the front here that I have seen. Um, and then if there's any big ones here at the bottom, like I'm some of these I'm recognizing and like I just cannot remember the name. And of course, there's some other big series. Like I think Run with the Wind would be near goat, and I don't see that in here anywhere. But it was just like if I just put anime I'd seen, it'd take way too long. Um, I think just through Galactic Heroes is kind of the last ones that I've seen all the way through, at least enough to comment on the ending or feel decent about it. Monster, right? Great ending. I'm gonna put it right behind Tokyo Ghoul. Honestly, would be in competition for it's kind of right in that second tier. It almost should be very good. It should almost be split into two here because there's just so many great endings. But Monster is Urasawa at his best. Helsing, I'm gonna put top of solid. Like I think Helsing's just like a fun pop series, and the ending is good. It's violent, it's crazy, but it's not anything to write home about, I don't think. Uh, Ergo Proxy, I think, is near the bottom of very good. And I'll actually put it, yeah, I think that's a good place for it. Such a unique and fun series. I love avant-garde storytelling, and Ergo Proxy is like one of the main examples of that in early 2000s. I think it's early 2000s, could be late 90s. Anime captures that time period so well. And so yeah, big fan of I think that's how it's pronounced, Ergo Proxy. It's again been a long time since I've seen it. Yu Yu Hakusho is in the solid category, unfortunately. I'm actually going to put it behind Death Parade. Um, and we'll go over this again one more time, and you guys can tell me, what were your thoughts? Did I have any huge misses outside of like Steins Gate? Um, Devilman Crybaby. Uh, I think it's in solid as well, but probably the top of solid. Like I don't adore the series, but it does feel like a little bit better than like Helsing or JoJo's Part 3 ending, which I'm actually gonna move. I'm gonna move Helsing down a little bit. That's a little aggressive for Hellsing now that I'm like really looking at it. Like I'm just moving it way down. Yeah, that makes more sense. And then yeah, another great ending. I'm gonna move it into very good. Not quite goat material. Um, I'm gonna put it behind part 4. Feels pretty good to me. So I think the rest of these are a lot like Gintama. I've only seen like half of, and I wouldn't feel comfortable giving it a specific rating. Then a couple of these I recognize, feel like I've seen it, like Magi. I've seen a couple episodes of, but not enough to give it a full rating. So I'm gonna leave these off. A lot of these right aware of, but just kind of took a random list here. So we can kind of go over it. Give me your opinions. Do you agree with my goat category? Do you think some should be flipped around? So I think going through this isn't every anime, of course, but there's a pretty decent sample of a lot of really popular shows. I think Code Geass, yeah, it just um Haikyuu's on the top, yep, and it is. Some of these are considered manga as well. If you're just coming in, so that's the would be considered the manga's ending for that series, um, and uh, and so I think Code Geass has the best. Like its ending is one of the only endings I've ever come across that it just totally floored me and totally made me appreciate what had come before so much more. It wasn't and it just almost came out of nowhere with how good and seamless it worked. And so I think when you're talking ending specific, I just don't think there's a lot that competes with Code Geass. For me, Full Metal's ending just ties everything up, but also went kind of a step further with Ed's decision at the end of that series. And so that's why I probably would lean it over Haikyuu. But Haikyuu is, one of those shonen manga that does something that basically, like every fan of Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero, a lot of their frustrations are down to plot threads not getting touched on, right? Like, certain open ends or just like, introducing a concept and not revisiting it, which is not a bad thing, I don't think. But Haikyuu is an example of a series that, and maybe one of the best, of that it touches on literally everything at the ending, and it just is so satisfying. Assassination Classroom is one that maybe I didn't think would be GOAT when I started making this list, but it is just the perfect ending for that series, and it delivers on every level. On it's not surprising necessarily how it ends, but it's so emotional and so well done, and it really makes that show what it is, I think. And then Cowboy Bebop, I think, is one of the best endings. Like I think is a cut above what's below. Like I adore the final handful of episodes of Cowboy Bebop, and I think it does a great job at shifting from that episodic storytelling to something a little more plot focused, but also keeps the aesthetic and vibe and atmosphere that's so wonderful about the entire series. So yeah, I kind of agree with those 5 endings from this batch that we've seen. But I think the next couple that would be really close to GOAT for me is definitely Neon Genesis, either the original ending of the anime or the end of Evangelion, Fate Zero, Tokyo Ghoul's manga, Monster, and Madoka Magica. I think those 5 endings are really, really close with the 5 above them. And honestly, a couple of them maybe could go up, but I always like to try to keep the top tier a little more refined. I love part 4's ending, and I think it's for me, it's my favorite part so far of JoJo's. I think a lot of these endings, like Dragon Ball Z, Your Lie in April, Anohana, Naruto, they do a great job at hitting the emotions of the material, whether it's a great send off like Naruto and Dragon Ball Z, or it is like a very emotional story like Your Lie in April and Anohana. Attack on Titan, I like the ending more than a lot of other people, but I do think it isn't the greatest ending of all time. And I think one that could have Angel Beats maybe is a little low. Probably is honestly like Angel Beats should be a bit higher here. It in part 3 should be a bit lower, and I kind of like Death Parade, the only reason is because it didn't get a season 2. That's the only reason it's a bit lower. Um, and I feel like Solid is such an interesting range because some of these shows I think are way better than some of these other shows. Like I think Death Note is still an amazing show. I think Death Parade's an amazing show. Bleach is an amazing manga. Um, and yet I think the endings are just like they didn't kind of blow me away in the same way. And then we only have a handful of mixed bag and mid, like Dead Man Wonderland, Erased, Promise Neverland. These are huge. A couple of those are huge adaptation failures, right? And that's kind of the most common for an anime. And I know that they have the manga listed here, but I feel like Promise Neverland has to go bottom of mid. Like everyone knows how bad the ending of that anime is. And then I don't love JoJo's Part One. And then there's just like a lot of like of these 2000s series like Kill la Kill and Darling in the Franxx and Akame ga Kill and another that or 2010 series that are just like fine and I think don't had the opportunity to have an ending that's absolutely insane and good that could have elevated the shows, but just because of that they're kind of like, oh yeah, I remember that show from that era, it was a good show at the time, but like nothing insane, starting to get nostalgic as they're over 10 years old now. And then there's still, so many that I haven't completed, or just like don't remember based on like, what the images are. Um, so yeah, what do you all think about this list? This will probably be kind of near the end of the stream. I know it's kind of, I'm always doing just kind of impromptu streams. But uh yeah, I thought this was a really fun concept. It's something that I definitely think I could revisit in the future and like make a full list of all the shows I've seen. It would be really fun. Like I do still want to go through my top 50 or top 100 anime and just like talk through why I love these series with y'all. And slowly reveal that list and work on that list. It's so fun to do. And then maybe down the road doing some more streams like this. So yeah. If no one else has any other questions, then I'll probably call it a day here. Again, I really appreciate all your support over the last month. It's been such a sporadic month on the channel because of these copyright issues, and that we did get solved, of course. And then, the issues, me getting sick and me getting the stomach flu was a bit rough. I lost like 10 pounds in one night. So that was fun. Um, Promise Neverland ending is that bad. Yeah, season 2 is rough. Like the manga ending, which I said earlier, like, and I know that is a manga image there, but it is definitely like not that bad. But it's such a meme with how bad the anime ending is that I wanted to throw it, where it belongs. But it's like they just rush so much of the material and cut out so much of the material that it could have been like 4 seasons worth. And it ended up being 2. And so yeah, that was pretty rough. And yay, no copyright strikes. Yeah. Yeah, man, it was a really, really long couple of weeks of just like trying to figure it out. But yeah, very thankful that the copyright strikes are done. And so I can kind of get back to uploading video essays and the such. And so I think my next video is probably going to be on Dawn to Dawn. And hopefully that'll be out later this week. Going to try to still stream at least once a week is always my goal. It's really fun doing these streams and stuff and coming up with new ideas for streams and the timing might be a little sporadic, but it's a lot of fun to do. And so yeah, I agree with you with on Run with the Wind. The character development is top tier. Yeah, totally agree with you, Reese. I think there was a lot of series that weren't included here because I did just like grab like a random list, which is also fun because it's like how many of these series have I not talked about in so long, like Angel Beats and Host Club and Ergo Proxy. But yeah, Run with the Wind would have been probably top of very good, I think, for endings, and just adore that show so much. But yeah, and then the next Aoashi is going to be the next watch along, which will probably get announced tomorrow. I just got to make the schedule for that and everything. So be on the lookout for that. Kind of and November was a weird month, but I'm looking forward to get back to just kind of a more consistent December. And also, I don't know if anyone in here, I know this isn't anime related, but if anyone in here is a big fan of Brandon Sanderson's work, because he's releasing Stormlight Book 5 next week, or this week now. And but I'm going to his convention on Wednesday called Dragonsteel. And so if anyone who happens to watch this far in is going to Dragonsteel, let me know. And hopefully I'll be meeting a ton of people there and stuff. And it's funny because it's not anime related, but I also do read a ton of fantasy and read a lot of novels like that. So that's going to be really exciting coming up. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching the stream. It was super fun talking these endings. Let me know, what are some of your favorite endings, especially, if they aren't any of the 5 that are in the GOAT category or they weren't on this list. We'll see you for the next stream and the next couple videos, and maybe you guys can join in on the Awashi watch along. All right, see you next time.